It's time for another exciting edition of the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. Stay tuned as we discuss local and national sports from Southeast Missouri and beyond. And now, without further ado, let's get on with the show. The Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle is brought to you by Royal Retros. If you like cool throwback jerseys of defunct sports teams, Royal Retros is the place to buy. If you go to royalretros.com and you order with the code SPORTSDESK, all one word, you can get a little bit off your order. So check out Royal Retros. And now on with the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.
And welcome back to the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. I'm Mike Bueller.
I'm Mark Sanders.
And Kyle is out of pocket today, but should be back with us next week. But we still have a good show for you all today. We're going to talk a little bit about the St. Louis Cardinals, who have been very up and down of late, although probably a little more down. Plus, we're going to talk a little bit of high school football since that starts at the end of the next month. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the National Football League.
Yes,
but
because we're so desperate for football, and there is literally nothing else going on except the dirge days of baseball. We will speculate on as much football as humanly possible.
That is right. That is right. Mark Sanders has spoken and spoken well, y'all. And before we get into football, we are going to talk about a little bit of the dirge days of baseball and the St. Louis Cardinals, who, like I said, have been very up and down of late, but I think they've been a little bit more down, and that was typified last night when they went out and got absolutely boat raced and humiliated by the lowly Washington Nationals. Mark, tell us more.
Oh, do I have to? I mean, they lost to a pitcher whose he improved his record to 4-8 on the season. Andre Palante drops to 5-5, and let's see, the Cardinals are 4-6 in their last 10 games. Their positive run differential is down to 11. They're 5 games over 500. They're sitting 5.5 games out of the National League Central lead, which has now become a 2-team race between the Cubs and the Brewers. The Brew Crew sits just a game and a half behind the Small Bears, who've lost 2 in a row and who only have a 6-4 record in their last 10. So I had predicted that the Cubs were going to run away with the division, but the Brewers look like they might have something else to say about that. Looking over at the NL wild card, the Mets and the Brewers sit at the top, followed by the Giants in the third spot. The Padres are a game back, and the Cardinals are sitting a game and a half back. So let's diagnose what's wrong with this team. It's primarily their starting pitching. They have two pitchers. They have 2 starting pitchers in Miles Michaelis and Eric Fetty who need to go. They no longer need to be on the team. And maybe you could package them together for a pack of gum. You know, I don't know what you're going to get for 2 pitchers who can't pitch in the major leagues anymore. We only have one real major league prospect in AAA right now. I don't know his name off the top of my head. I read it.
I think it's McGreevy.
You may be right. You could say John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, and I wouldn't know if you were right or wrong. I just don't know. But they don't have a lot of pitching prospects in the minor leagues. So I've been going back and forth on this, and you know, smarter minds than me who work in baseball are going to make this decision for the club. But I don't think they're going to be buyers at the trade deadline. I don't necessarily think that they're going to do a fire sale on the entire team, because the only assets that they have to trade are their 2 best players, and that's Sonny Gray, our only consistently good starting pitcher, and then Nolan Arenado on third base. And I don't want to trade either one of those. You need talented veterans to lead a young club. We certainly don't want to trade away any of our young hitters we don't have anyone in the minor leagues really to deal, and the whole point of this season was supposed to be a rebuild, even though it's been kind of a competitive rebuild, to borrow that terminology from the Minnesota Vikings. It's turned out to be a competitive rebuild, but I don't see that they can do all that much, and here's why. They're just as liable with this team in the way that it's been put together in the first half of the season to win 10 in a row as they are to lose 10 in a row. And I'm not sure that you can change that dynamic with a couple of players. Now, we certainly don't know who is available, but I mean, Michaelis and Fetty are not trade chips. I mean, nobody's thinking, no, if we had Miles Michaelis on our team, we could make the playoffs, because that simply is not happening. So maybe you just cut bait and you release both of those players, and you do what you can with what you have, bringing up some young arms in the minor league. Of course, you don't want to rush their development and harm them for the future. So, I just think we're kind of stuck with the team that we have, and I don't see, other than unloading the talent that you already have, which is dumb. I mean, now if somebody came along and wanted to make you an absolutely insane offer for Arenado and he approved the trade, I mean, maybe the Yankees need a push, or somebody else like that, and they're like, Arenado's like the last piece of the puzzle for us, and they want to give us an entire bag of AAA talent for that. That's something that you definitely have to listen to in looking for the future. But I think that that's pretty unlikely that something like that is going to happen. So my prediction is that the Cardinals are, for the most part, going to stand pat at the trade line. But I don't think Michaelis or Fetty are going to factor into this team. I don't think either one of those men are going to be on the team in the second half of the season. So if you're a Redbirds fan, I think you just have to take what we have, which is an inconsistent team that on some days looks really young and talented and fun and exciting, and on other days it looks like a team that lost 8-2 to the last place Washington Nationals. And I don't know what more you can say about them. They're fun but inconsistent, and so they're ultimately going to frustrate us before the season is done.
Mark, I think you hit the nail on the head, and I would not be one bit surprised for them to release Michaelis. I'm actually surprised he has not been DFA'd yet. That's DFA means designated for assignment, for those of you who haven't heard. Fetty could be next if that happens. Fetty may have a little more left in his arm than Michaelis, but we'll see. As for the rest of it, I think you're right. I really think about the only guy on our team right now that could bring us much in terms of prospects is Sonny Gray. I don't know how much we can get for Arenado even. A couple of years ago we would have got a lot. This time around, I don't know. So, yeah, I think there's a good chance we're going to stay in pat, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen second half. We're able to surge and get a wild card spot and maybe win a postseason game or two. That's great. If we end up finishing at or maybe a little over, a little under 500, that may happen too. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the future's bright for the Cardinals. I think once we get Mozeliak out of the front office, we get Keim Bloom taking over baseball operations, and we start to see some of that talent flow up from a rebuilt farm system, and that's Bloom's job this year, is to revitalize that farm system. I'm looking at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch sports page, looking at the headlines, and it says things like Cardinals top prospect J.J. Wetherholt makes loud class AAA debut with 424-foot homer. So, I mean, that's good news. We do have some talent coming up the pipeline. We just don't have any talent well, we don't have enough talent in the starting rotation right now. And yesterday, either yesterday or the day before, Post-Dispatch columnist Ben Hotchman literally called for Eric Fetty's release. And after his last performance against the Cubs, Hotchman came straight out and said, "Get this guy off of the ball club." So, when the press starts publishing things like that, you know that you've got some problems with your roster.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. And now that we talked a little bit about the not so good St. Louis Cardinals, we're going to talk about something a little happier. We're going to talk about high school football. That starts, I think practices start exactly 1 month from tomorrow. The first game should be starting about the 28th, 29th of August. Some of the St. Louis area schools will be playing on Saturday afternoon on August 30th. So it's getting close. And, we're going to start off at a couple of pretty solid. They won.
Mike, reposition your phone. Mike, reposition your phone.
Okay, sorry. We're going to talk a little bit about the Pablo Meals. They're coming off a couple of solid years where they have won postseason games each year, but they've got some kids back. They've got a good running back back. They've got some other kids back, but they have got some holes to fill, and none bigger than at quarterback where we are graduating Jay Edmondson.
Yeah, I mean, Edmondson is not. He's not your classic star quarterback in terms of physique or talent. Not to say that he wasn't talented. I'm just saying, there's nothing where you would look at him and say, oh, okay, well he's going to be a good QB at the next level. He was a good high school quarterback. But what he had was grit and determination and leadership. And when they needed him to make a big throw, he was able to connect, and especially with his feet. I mean, he had not just quick feet, but a really good vision about when to take off and run and get through those holes. And so the biggest hole for the Mules to fill going into the fall is answering the question, who's the quarterback? And I have spoken off the record with a couple of coaches, again, off the record, I'm not going to tell you who, and it hasn't, as far as I can tell at least, it hasn't been settled yet. I don't think that a real favorite has emerged at this point. And for Mules fans, we just have to hope that somebody is going to be able to step up and take on that role and have some success. I think we may not know until a lot closer to mid or late August to know who is going to have the edge in getting that quarterback position.
I think that's going to be interesting, and that may not be the worst thing. I remember back, in the late 90s, we graduated a really solid quarterback after the 97 season in Andy Sisney, and we were wondering, well, who's going to be the quarterback next year? And we tried Ryan Dicken earlier in the season, and we had, mixed success. And then in the third game of the season, we were playing Osceola, Arkansas, back when Osceola was one of the best teams in that state. And we were struggling, and Coach Bruce made the switch at that time to Stan Revell, who went on to become arguably the greatest quarterback in Papa Bluffield's history. He's the only first-team All-Stater we've ever had, and he ended up, walking on at Notre Dame, playing for the legendary Fighting Irish. Yeah. So you never know what might happen.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. One of the things I really like with Coach Mannon is his philosophy about coaching up, all the way down to the kids who are just starting out at 6 or 7 years old playing flag football. It's something that's still going to take a few more years to develop, but getting that talent chain starting with the basic training down in middle school, and then developing through junior high and junior varsity, so that by the time these players make it to their junior year, they're ready to move up to varsity, and they've been playing football for 6 or 7 years. And that development pipeline is something that is going to be crucial if Poplar Bluff wants to be able to compete outside of Southeast Missouri, because whether or not we like it, and it no longer matters whether you're a Class 1 school or a Class 6 school, the big population centers, Kansas City, Columbia, Jeff City, St. Louis, Springfield, to a certain extent Cape and Jackson, although I'm going to lump those in with Southeast Missouri, but the big population centers have mad talent in every classification, from Class 1 to Class 6. These big cities, they have a large population pool to draw from. You have the disadvantage of the fact that the Missouri State High School Athletic Association puts private and parochial schools in with public schools, and private schools are able to offer scholarships and recruit athletes into their programs. That's why you see, second up this season for the Mules is Chaminade College Prep. Chaminade is a private school. They recruit talent to their team. I don't think that's fair, but nobody asked my opinion. So, so if we're going to compete beyond winning district and getting housed in the sectionals of the state playoffs, we're really going to have to seriously develop our local talent from a young age and encourage them toward athletic excellence once they hit the junior and senior years here in high school. And I commend Coach Manning for that plan, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing him execute that successfully.
Indeed, it's going to be interesting, and we will talk about a few other teams in the area. I recently wrote a story, for the Dexter Statesman about Dexter releasing their football schedule. It is basically the same as last season, except that the home and road locations are flipped. But it should be a good schedule, and Dexter's going to be an interesting team because they graduated some great players. They graduated one of the top running backs in the area, Jet Grams. They graduated Nolan Alford, who's one of the top defenders in the area. I think they're going to need a new quarterback, but they've also got some pretty solid kids back. They're also a well-coached team. Chad Jamerson does a great job with them over there. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we're really going to see whether Dexter can build on that big district championship. They went 11-1 last season, including the playoffs. Did not advance as far in the state playoffs as they would have wanted to. I think it's going to be a fun season for Dexter. I'm kind of curious myself. Of course, we call ourselves the Sports Desk because in addition to our day jobs, we're also sports. Well, Mike's a full-time sports writer. I'm a part-time. I'm a freelancer stringer in the journalistic vocabulary. But I have not yet found out if I'm going to cover a particular school or if they're going to have me float. So I might be in Poplar Bluff. I could be in Donovan. I could be in Dexter. Probably not Sideston, but also possibly Malden. Malden's a team we don't really talk about because they've been down for quite some time, but so has Donovan. But Donovan is really interesting. They're an interesting case. They brought in two new coaches, I should say, last season. Nathan Hampton coming over from Portageville, and then Colton Skiles came over with Hampton as his assistant, and they delivered in their first season. Now, they only played junior varsity because they wanted a chance to get more players into their program and accustomed to playing football, the training and the game execution. And that plan was definitely successful. They lost their opening game to Saxony Lutheran by a mere 2 points. They dropped that one 40-38. And then the rest of their JV schedule was just a juggernaut for the Dons. They won 7 games in a row. They recorded 4 shutouts. In two of their other wins, they only gave up 6 points, and in their final match against Liberty at Mountain View, they only gave up 2 touchdowns, 14 points on that, winning 46-14. So at least at the JV level, they showed that they could be successful. So after 1 year back at JV, they are moving up to a varsity schedule again. So we'll see if Donovan will be successful this year in finally resurrecting their varsity football program.
That would be good. I mean, I did back in the early 2000s. I worked a short stint over at the Prospect News and wrote a 3-part series back when Donovan didn't have football about the possibility of them resurrecting the program, which they finally did back in 2018. And Donovan's a big enough school; they should have football. When I wrote that article in 2003, they were the largest school between Monroe, Louisiana, and Keokuk, Iowa, that did not have varsity football, and that's inexcusable. I used to live in Kansas, Nebraska, and Wyoming, where schools smaller than the smallest schools in this area, smaller than a Risco or a Naylor or a Clarkton even, would find a way to play football. They would play 8-man football or 6-man football, but they played football. So there's no good reason for Donovan High School to not have a high school football team. And, that program can be successful. I mean, it's, and it should be successful. Donovan's a good athletic school. They've got a great AD in Adam Epps. He's also a great girls basketball coach, brought them their first state championship. And that's a program I would like to see win, and that's a program that I think can win if the right things are done.
Yeah, we're just gonna. The biggest thing for me, and I covered Donovan for a couple of years before they took the year off for JV play, and the biggest problem was that they just didn't have enough kids on the field. They only had about maybe 20 kids on the entire team, so all of their starters were having to play 2 ways. Play offense and defense and special teams. There was hardly any time to get substituted out. And I remember one game that I covered, they were playing Scott County Central. And Scott County came at they had like a 50-man roster, so no 2-way players. And, as expected, they just rolled right over them. And you can't be successful as a football team if you're trying to play 4 quarters on both sides of the ball. So hopefully they recruited enough players where they can have starters on offense and starters on defense the way that it's supposed to be. So it really is primarily a numbers game. So I think that's going to be absolutely the first thing that I look at is what does that roster look like. And
exactly.
I'm clicking on the Misha website, and right now that roster is empty. They haven't played.
Yeah, I think with it being July, I don't think anybody's got rosters up right now, though.
Yeah, no. But yeah, that's going to be the name of the game is seeing the names on the roster. And yeah, they've got great athletes in Donovan. I've watched them play basketball. You've watched them play baseball. So yeah, they have fellas who can get out there and play. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Taking a quick look at the Sykeston Bulldogs, they had a really down year last season, only going 3-7, and as a matter of fact, it's been kind of a down decade for the Bulldogs. They haven't recorded a winning season since going 7-4 in 2016. That is a program that has a pretty proud tradition, including looks like fourth place in the state back in 2010, where they recorded a 13-1 record. But that's been 15 years ago. So I'm sure the folks over in Sykeston are hoping that they can rebuild a winning tradition over there in Bulldog territory.
They've got a pretty good chance, actually. Last season, they brought Jim May in, who had coached for many years at, Perryville and Scott City, and he's one of the most highly regarded coaches in the area. And I'm hearing actually a pretty decent amount of optimism about the future of Sykeston football. May's got a really good reputation as a coach, and there are a lot of people that fully expect him to turn that program around. And, having grown up, I graduated Poplar Bluff High School in 1991, and Mark graduated a few years before me. We remember how good Sykeston football used to be.
Oh, yeah. Looking at
go ahead.
I was just saying, looking ahead at their schedule, I hope their coach has them prepared. They have a juggernaut of a schedule. It's a very unbalanced schedule in terms of home and away. They start off on the road at Crystal City, followed up by 4 home games. But look at these opponents: Dexter, Cape Central, Caruthersville, and Farmington. So I mean, in Dexter, Cape Central, and Farmington, you've got 3 teams there that had really good seasons last year, and then they go for 3 on the road here at Poplar Bluff and at Jackson, and then New Madrid County Central. So those are all 3 tough road games before they end up at home against Charleston. So they're going to have to bring it on the field because their schedule is really daunting.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but like I said, I'm curious to see how much May's got to do with that program, after being there for a year. I want to see how much they move forward their second year. And what I was going to say real quick before we switch to talking about the National Football League is Southeast Missouri high school football is better when there's a good football team on the field in Sykeston.
Oh, yeah,
it makes it a lot more interesting, and it makes the area a lot better.
Yeah, we really need these schools that are just sort of natural regional rivals to be good teams. It's a lot more fun when one team is down, and the other team. And I would say the same thing right now in the football programs at Malden and Kennett. Kennett had a really down year last year. Poplar Bluff went down there and won that game very easily. And I remember, when I was in high school back in the Middle Ages, those contests against Kennett were wildly competitive. So yeah, football's better when everyone's good.
It is. One bit of good news about Kennett, if you're a Kennett Indians fan, they have brought back Joel Wyatt, who was the coach at Kennett back in the 2010s. I think in like the mid to late 2010s when they had some of their most successful runs. I think they won a couple of district titles, made the state Final Four one year, and he, led them to that. He is back, and that bodes really well for the future of Kennett football. If anybody can, pick them up from the bottom that they hit last year, he can do it.
Well, and, I'll say the same thing about Kennett that you said about Donovan. They've got more than enough athletic talent in that community to field a competitive team.
Exactly. But switching gears to the National Football League, I know one thing me and Mark talked about coming into the show. What do you want out of your team going into training camp? And I'll just start off since I'm a Titans fan. I know what I want. I want Cam Ward to click with his offense, and I want to see some receivers emerge. I'd like to see some guys. We don't have a lot behind Calvin Ridley right now. I would like to see, some of these rookies like Imaner and maybe Xavier, I think, Restrepo, or I probably just butchered his name.
You nailed it. That's it. Xavier Restrepo.
But he was Cam Ward's teammate down in Miami. I would like to see some of those guys emerge. And I would like for us to get some hope that we're going to be better than the 3-14 record we put out this past year. We've had some ups and downs. I mean, it's not that we've been a just perennially basement-dwelling franchise like, say, the Cleveland Browns or teams like that. But I would like to see this team finally get good and stay good and not just be a good team, but be a perennial Super Bowl contender every year, like the Kansas City Chiefs, like the Buffalo Bills, like the Philadelphia Eagles. And this is the National Football League. We have parity. It can be done with the right coaching and the right front office. So I would like to see out of training camp us start showing the signs that we are finally on the right track and headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, and the good thing I think that you can look forward to as a Tennessee Titans fan is that there's nowhere to go but up. I don't think that there's any way that this team doesn't win at least 6 or 7 games. So you can look forward to at least doubling your win total. You definitely got better on the offensive line by adding signing Kevin Zeitler, big guard who was formerly with the Detroit Lions. He's a bit older, but I mean he can still play. That's going to be important to keep Cam Ward safe there. Of course, Ward, for whatever reason, we talked about this off the air before we started the show. I've never seen a number 1 overall draft pick be so thoroughly ignored by the national media. I mean, even on draft night, I mean, it's like, yeah, the Titans took Cam Ward. Let's talk about where Shedeur Sanders is going to go. And that gave them 3 days worth of talking, and they're still talking about it. They're still talking about, a backup quarterback who's probably 3rd or 4th on the depth chart for the woeful Cleveland Browns. And, one other thing that I would probably emphasize as far as strengths for the Titans roster, you've got some really good guys on the defense. You've got Jeffrey Simmons, Devondre Sweat, Lorenzo Carter, and Desmond Evans playing linebacker. You've got some talent on that defense. So, I think the needle is pointing up for Tennessee. There are almost no expectations. There's very little expectations for Ward compared to all of the rookies from last year. Caleb Williams and Drake May and why can't I ever remember the kid who's playing in Washington? Why is his name
Jaden Daniels?
Jaden Daniels. It's a simple name. I'll tell you what, I turned 57 a couple of weeks ago, and I think I lost about 57,000 brain cells when that happened. So my apologies to everyone about that. That's why I try to write down names as much as possible. Just before we get off Tennessee, I want to just take a look at their schedule. Regular season at Denver, home against the Rams and the Colts, at Houston, at Arizona, at Las Vegas, home against New England, at Indianapolis versus the Chargers. I think it's very likely that they will go 4-4, perhaps 5-3 before their bye.
I'd love that.
Yeah, I mean, both of the games against Indianapolis are winnable. Houston, I'm not sure. I think you can win on the road at Arizona and Las Vegas. I think you could even sneak into Denver first week and maybe steal a win. So I mean, I think even going 3-5 in the first 9 weeks of the season, or 4-5. Excuse me, I can't count. But yeah, and then the second half of the season, you're home against Houston, Seattle, Jacksonville, then at Cleveland, at San Francisco, then home Kansas City, New Orleans, and Jacksonville. And let me just count up wins there. Jacksonville, Cleveland. I mean, that's 4 more wins in the second half of the season. So yeah, I don't think 8 or 9 wins is out of the realm of possibility for the Titans this season. Yeah, it would definitely be roster pointing up. Before I talk about my things, I want to complain This should be a weekly feature. My complaint about ESPN, they've got a guy named Seth Walder who writes about football. He says he's an analytics writer specializing in quantitative analysis, which means he's a statistics nerd. He's also a regular on ESPN Bet Live and helps cover sports betting. So this article is it's NFL off-season grades, and let's see how he grades Minnesota. C+, which is just ridiculous. And I'm not gonna read anything of what he wrote because it's utter nonsense. It's just standard East Coast media boilerplate that is based on things that other people in the East Coast media say about the Vikings. I follow Vikings news literally every day of my life. You know, I follow the coverage in the Minneapolis media. I listen to Purple Daily and Purple Insider on a daily basis, and almost nothing that this guy says makes any sense at all. He didn't like the signing of defensive tackle Jonathan Allen. Was Allen hurt last season? Yes. But he came back and played, and he played really well for the Commanders, especially in that playoff game where they upset the Detroit Lions. I mean, Allen was just a load, and I think that probably factored in the Vikings signing him, seeing how effective he was going up against Detroit's offensive line. He's also complaining about the salary for Will Fries. I mean, if you watched the interior of the Vikings offensive line last season, you see that we absolutely had to replace all those people. More complaints about the draft, about taking Donovan Jackson in round one. I mean, when you see Donovan Jackson start at left guard this season and see how well he's going to play, this is for, what are you analyzing here? Are you analyzing fantasy football? Are you analyzing the salary cap? Look, Minnesota's salary cap guru, Rob Brzezinski, is an absolute genius at manipulating the cap. I would venture to say he does it better than anyone else in the NFL, how to work that cap. So anyone who is wringing their hands over the fact that next year the Vikings project to be about $52 million over the cap, don't worry about it. That's all going to change. That'll all get taken care of. So there is my rant against ESPN and the fact that their so-called football experts are blowing smoke out from the back of their skirts as far as I'm concerned. Now,
ESPN, also known as the Coastal Sports Network, and especially the East Coast Sports Network.
Yeah, or as our friend Tuck likes to call them, ESPNBA. all pro basketball coverage all the time. All right, moving on to what I'm looking for from Vikings training camp, and I have 5 points here, and I'll try to be brief on all of them. First of all is health. I want to check on the health of the players who are projected to be an important part in the Vikings having a successful season. We've got left tackle Christian Darrisaw coming back after ACL and MCL tears and surgery. Now, he did make an appearance during minicamp. That injured leg was heavily braced, looked like something from a Terminator movie. But he did go out for individual drills, but there are serious questions as to whether Darrisaw will be able to start the season. Likewise, right tackle Will Fries is coming off a broken leg from last season. He did not participate in OTAs or minicamp, but he is projected to be on the field for training camp. But we'll see how that leg holds up. Of course, our new defensive linemen who are supposed to make a difference in that interior pass rush, Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, both of them are coming off of injuries from last season. We want to make sure that they're healthy. Our new running back, Jordan Mason, who appears to be healthy, at least did during OTAs and minicamp, but he is also coming off an injury from last season. You want to see what TJ Hawkinson looks like. Of course, he did play during the second half of last season, but he clearly was not his old self after coming off of his own ACL repair surgery from the previous season. Thank you, Detroit Lions, for that little gift to us. So we're really, Vikings fans are hoping that Hawk is back to true 100% health form, and I suspect that he will be. I've had a couple of knee surgeries of my own. They were both meniscus surgeries, the same thing that J.J. McCarthy tore that brought him out of last season. I've had the meniscus removed from both of my legs because I'm not a professional athlete. And I can tell you in both of those cases, while I was back on my feet in a few weeks, and in the second case, after my second knee surgery, I was out for 6 weeks and was able to come back and participate in the playoffs for the church league softball team I was playing on. Again, nowhere near professional, and I was nowhere near full speed, but I could at least go out and participate. But when you have knee surgery, it takes a year after you're back. So like if I can't remember this, let's say I had knee surgery, and I think my first one was 1996, okay, which means all throughout 1997, like the summer of 97, I was able to play, and I was fine, but I wasn't back to where I was before the surgery until the following year, 98. So the timetable is accelerated with professional athletes, but the human body is the human body. So it takes a full year to recover from that. And we need to remember that concerning Darisaw and Fries, both the fact that they did have leg injuries. So I think you're going to see the coaching staff and the training staff go very gently with them. We'd like to see new wide receiver Rondell Moore. Like to see if he can get healthy again and get back on the field. I'm not sure if he's even going to be ready for training camp. And then our 6th-round draft pick tight end Gavin Bartholomew out of Pittsburgh. I don't know if he came into minicamp hurt or if he hurt something the Vikings aren't saying, but he did not participate in team drills. And so Benjamin Urasek, who is an undrafted free agent, did perform and performed pretty well in those. So that's number one, is health. We want to focus on getting the team healthy and keeping the team healthy. My second category is what I call take a chance on me. These are players who may or may not factor into the Vikings 53-man roster. And top on that list is cornerback Jeff Okudah, a former number 3 overall draft pick, I believe in 21 by the Detroit Lions. He has never met expectations and has bounced around with several teams. He did, however, get most of the first team reps during OTAs and minicamp, so speculation is high that he may be on Brian Flores' roster as one of the trio of starting cornerbacks, at least I'm talking about in the nickel. We also have some UDFAs of note to look at. One is Tyler Batty, an edge rusher from BYU. Logan Brown, an offensive tackle from Kansas. Zamiah Vaughn, that's a name that you need to remember. Zamiah Vaughn is a cornerback out of Utah, and he really popped during minicamp. So, and he can also return kicks, but he's a really big cornerback. I think he's like 6'1", 6'2". So Zamiah Vaughn might be in play for a backup spot in the secondary. And then former Texas wide receiver Silas Bolden. He's really slight. He's only 5'8", but he's a super speedster, and so he might actually factor in on special teams as either a punt returner or a kickoff returner. So those are 5 players to look at and see if they can continue to impress during regular training camp. Of course, number 3 are our draft picks. Donovan Jackson is going to be starting with the first team. I think he's going to be really impressive. And again, I love to watch the national sports media eat a big helping of crow when it comes to how they dismiss everything that the Vikings do. And part of that is the Vikings' own fault because, they have been masters at shooting themselves in their own foot. But again, that was before the Quasi and Kevin era. It's a new era. So Jackson's going to be great. I'm curious to see where Ty Felton fits on this team. Will he be number 4 receiver? Can he be that yards after the catch guy playing in the slot on quick slants? Can Felton even compete for that number 3 job with Jalen Naylor? Probably not. Felton had some problem with drops during minicamp, so he better get together with JJ and Free 3 and get to work on his hands. Kobe King, I think, is going to be a contributor on special teams to start with and maybe work in on some running plays as a linebacker. The one who really intrigues me with the draft picks is Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. He's kind of a tweener. He's not fast enough to play edge rusher, and he's not quite big enough to be an interior lineman, but he's crazy athletic talented. He's one of those guys who's just described as an athletic freak. And he played for Georgia, but just didn't get enough playing time on Georgia. So he may actually turn out to be a diamond in the rough. He may turn out to be, now I don't think he's going to start this year or anything, but maybe he can impress Flores enough to get in on some obvious pass rushing downs. But I think he's a really intriguing player, so I'm going to be paying attention to him. 2 more things real quick. Number 4 is just the J.J. McCarthy narrative. I'm not the least bit worried about J.J. McCarthy, okay? J.J. McCarthy was the number 10 pick in the 2024 draft, okay? He was the quarterback of the national championship team. He's lost like 1 game as a starting quarterback since he started playing in high school. J.J. McCarthy's going to be fine, okay? But for some reason, the national media want him to fail because...
Of course they do. That makes for good ink.
Yes, because their position all along is he's assistant quarterback, he's a game manager, he has a weak arm, he's too young, he's too short, he's too small, he's too this, he's too that. The media decided before the draft ever happened, before the combine even happened, that J.J. McCarthy was going to be a failure. So that's their narrative. That's the narrative that they're locked into. Let me tell you this. J.J. McCarthy doesn't care about narratives. Neither does Kevin O'Connell. What they care about is what's going to happen on the field. So I'm just going to sit back and wait for that narrative to change. We have to wait for the regular season to do that, but I'm going to be paying attention to what that narrative is. I'm going to be paying particular attention to Colin Cowherd, who needs to be making space in his refrigerator for an extra large size humble pie that I will be delivering to his studio. So when JJ starts lighting it up in training camp, we'll see if Colin pays any attention. And then finally, number 5, Will Reichard. Will Reichard started at just house of fire as a kicker last season, and then he got injured with that quad injury. There's some speculation as to whether he came back too soon. Well, he's had an entire off season to heal up and prepare, and I'm just hoping that we can see the same Will Reichard who was knocking down kicks from 60 yards out in the last training camp. Hopefully he'll be even better this time around. So those are the 5 things that I'll be paying attention to out of Vikings training camp.
It's going to be interesting, and I think the national media often overlooks Minnesota the same way they overlook my guys. I mean, people, they look at us like we're barely even in the league. And I know we've had a couple of bad years, but we've had some good years. And I think the Vikings get a little bit of that as well. But it's going to be an interesting year. I think it's going to be a good year for both our teams, Mark.
Yeah,
and
I do too.
It's going to be fun to watch.
There is, I believe it was edge rusher Jonathan Grenard, after they got knocked out of the playoffs by the Rams last season, sent a text to all of his teammates and said more is required, and that's on the back of the T-shirts that they've been wearing so far during off-season activities. More is required.
I like that.
I really see the Vikings as a team on a mission, not only for themselves, but to prove to the rest of the league that last year's 14 wins were not a fluke, and that they really are a team to be reckoned with this season. But again, for both of our teams, talk isn't worth the bits and bytes that they're recorded on in the computer. I almost said tape, but we don't use tape anymore. Talk is less than cheap. You have to go out and show what you can do, and that's the great thing about football season. All of us talking heads, we can speculate about what's going to happen, but until the men get out there and do it on the field, we don't really know anything at all, and that's the fun of this league, is seeing that all play out.
Indeed it is, and that's a good note to end this week's show. We're going to have another good show coming up next week. I think we've had a pretty good show this week.
Yeah, I'm real happy with the discussion, especially the high school football preview. I think it's when we're in these super hot days of summer, it's easy to forget about football, but in just a few weeks, those kids are going to be out there sweating their hearts out out here in this muggy 90-plus southeast Missouri weather, and God bless them all for being willing to go out and put that work in, that necessary work, so that when the weather starts to turn cold, that they've put in the time to succeed.
Indeed, and you have been listening to the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. I'm Mike Bueller.
I'm Mark Sanders.
And this is the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.